Okay. Today, what I wanted to talk to you about is it's something that I mentioned in one of my prior posts on my professional Facebook page when I posted a video about that talked about things that people speculate are actually beneath the ice in Antarctica, and some of the things I found rather interesting. And of course, there wasn't enough room to sit and write it all down on Facebook, and your average person can't sit and stare at a screen for too long and read something really long in order to get all the information. And so I generally keep those kind of short, but give you basic information that I think would be interesting. But when it comes to Antarctica, I guess I'll go back to that. When I was studying geology, I think this was in a biology class, but when I was studying geology, one of the things that they had us do is they wanted us to go and find a biodiversity zone. Let me see, how do they word that? A biosphere of a location, whether it be the Sahara Desert or whether it be like uh, the Sahara Desert, or if it might be the Mediterranean area or whatever. And the place that I ended up choosing was actually Antarctica because I thought, gee, that would be really interesting, something to go and check out. And I went into that, and what I ended up finding was, there were some interesting things here and there that are listed in the book that I had. I did not see a whole lot of biodiversity in a lot of areas. You have a lot of sea creatures that are beneath the ice and the water. You have some things like seals that go around there. You have penguins, of course, and a slew of other kinds of sea and ice creatures that kind of work around there. But then you also have the volcanic regions of Antarctica. You may not realize it, but there are over 100 active volcanoes on Antarctica. Mount Erebus is just the most famous of the bunch. And I actually did a little research on Mount Erebus. Mount Erebus actually has an active lava pool that you can look in. There was a camera at one time that you can go and look at, and it shows you the lava as it's bubbling around there. When the last time Mount Erebus actually erupted, I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out to see the last time lava actually shot out of the volcano and onto the plains below, considering the fact that there are still glaciers all around there that have not been melted. I guess you could assume that it hasn't happened in a little while. I'll check it out sometime, though, just to make sure. But the biodiversity, I did not see a whole lot of. But then when I filled out all the things here and typed up my paper and sent it in, my teacher told me that actually that region has a lot more biodiversity than you are talking about here, and so I got a C on the paper. So there was a lot of biodiversity there that was not in the book that I was looking at, which means I probably should have gone and checked some other places. At the time, there wasn't as much online material that you can look up as you have today. But anyway, things do live there and things can live there. One of the things that people want to know, of course, is what is beneath the ice in Antarctica? What can exist beneath the ice in Antarctica? A lot of people have come up with some rather interesting ideas about what might be on Antarctica, whether it's the G.I. Joe thing where there was a Cobra base there, where they had an R&R center. After all, why would you expect some terrorist group to have some R&R center on the continent of Antarctica? An X-Files movie actually brings everybody to, well, it brings Mulder to Antarctica to look around for something. He's looking for Scully and trying to rescue her before some biological menace takes her out. There are plenty of other examples of what happens in Antarctica and what exists in Antarctica. When you actually look at it on a map and you look at the political spectrum of things, you'll note that there is a chunk of Antarctica that belongs to about 12 different nations. I should have counted before I started this video, but so there's a bunch of things that are controlled by various different nations. Let me see if I can pull it up. Who controls Antarctica? Let's see. Antarctica system and network. Antarctica is not owned by any one country. Well, yeah, I already knew that. Interactions, no military activity. So there is no military activity on the continent of Antarctica. However, one of the things that they do point out in a few stories that people are talking about is that actually some people who have visited Antarctica, it's supposed to be pretty much free ride. If you get there, you can travel around there. It's just at your own risk, and make sure you stay in contact with people when you get there. And there's talk about when people actually go to Antarctica and they start going closer towards the center where the South Pole is, that suddenly they have been pushed in other directions away from where they were going by some kind of military people. As to whose military it is, they are not really precise. And a lot of people are thinking, well, what is it on Antarctica that is so, that they need these military people to stop you from getting there? I can think of several actually valid reasons, but supposedly Antarctica is not inhabited by any military force. So who is it that they ran into, if anybody? And then one of the other things that, let's see, the military presence on the continent, stopping people from going there. And one of the other things that are talked about is there is a lot of ice. I mean, we are talking miles and miles of layers of ice that cover that continent. And of course, at one time, that continent was actually somewhere else because of continental drift and everything and shifting. Antarctica actually used to be closer to the equator than it is today. In fact, if there is a dramatic pole shift, many people believe that Antarctica is actually going to be back over there towards the equator, kind of like it was during the Pangea period. If you're not familiar with that, that's when all the land was in one huge mass on Earth before plate tectonics sort of drifted things apart. But because Antarctica, of course, was pretty much in a bunch of other different places before it was in the South Pole, there were times in which it was not covered with ice at all. There's going to be a lot of living creatures that were on that particular landmass. And if humans existed at that particular time, of course, those humans would be moving around at that time. The last time that Antarctica was in that position was, I think it was it was during a time when humans actually did exist on the Earth. But there's also people who are speculating that humans may not have been the only semi-intelligent creatures on the Earth, and there might be something underneath the ice that is some kind of creatures beneath the ice that are intelligent. That's one of the reasons why we have military personnel there, even though there's not supposed to be. And you've got people who speculate that there are certain ice shelves that are not natural that actually exist there beneath the surface of the ice. If you've ever heard about the geological glaciology, or the study of ice cores to find out how things were thousands and millions of years ago under this particular ice, then if it was too long ago, of course there weren't humans on there, now that I think about it, but there were living creatures there at any time, though, when Antarctica was up around the equator. But one of the things that people are speculating about is the notion that Antarctica is actually, the ice is covering a whole lot of things that we just do not understand or we don't appreciate. There are some things that people have said that they have encountered there in Antarctica, where either satellite imagery is flying overhead and they can see some certain things beneath the ice caps, the ice surfaces. And of course, they want to have it investigated. There are some people who claim that they have been part of a top secret government research and that they have actually discovered a pyramid beneath the ice on Antarctica. Now, if that was true, that would be truly amazing. That would definitely make you wonder who exactly could have built that particular pyramid. It doesn't say whether the pyramid is on the ground, so to speak, on the continent, as opposed to some level of the ice sheets. Probably they're going to be speculating that it's completely beneath the ice on the continent itself. And if there's actually structures, buildings of any kind on Antarctica beneath the ice, of course, we all want to know about it. Sometimes, of course, we have a situation where the government is going to hide things from us for one reason or another, unlike certain people that have the rather odd ideas about who or what might actually be below the surface there on the Antarctic continent. It can be really fascinating if we were to actually have people actually go and research those things. Considering Antarctica's location and the weather there, doing actual in-depth research is not going to be easy. If you've ever heard about the people who actually live on the astral continent, the southernmost continent of Antarctica, you will note that a lot of times they can only be outside for a couple hours, and then they have to be back inside to warm up, and then they go back outside, and then they go back inside. So they have to go in certain spurts. If you're working outside really hard and then you start to sweat, then when you're stopping to work, you have to run back inside before the sweat actually freezes on your body. That literally does happen if you're not careful in those particular things. Something else that you can actually go and research and look into is there are actually a couple Polynesian ideas about a land that is actually to the south of New Zealand. So the Maori of New Zealand are the southernmost Polynesian people on the planet. Their culture is a little bit different because the island that they inhabit is actually a bit larger and a bit more away from other Polynesian cultures. And so they have a bunch of different things that they have done, different ways that stories have changed because of their particular situation. I won't go into the Cena and the eel story, which I like to tell my students in class when I'm talking about how different people look at the same kinds of stories and how they evolve. So the Polynesian stories talk about tall structures rising up out of the south. The Maori have claimed to have seen this. This would imply that some people in New Zealand made it to Antarctica during the what I call it, the colonial times, or let's just say during their exploration periods. And when they get there, of course, they have a lot of these things that they see. They're seeing structures poking out of the ice. So if they're seeing structures poking out of the ice, why are we not seeing these structures poking out of the ice? Well, because they're under the ice now. So how long ago would these Polynesians have had to have been there in order to see these things beneath the ice and have it not be above the ice right now? Those are some of those little things that you have to sort of just take. You take the story and you embellish the story, but the story is what it is. You don't necessarily have to explain why things are the way they are when you are telling these particular stories. But the historian in me, of course, is going to be asking, is this feasible? Did they just see some kind of interesting shaped mountains that they thought were structures? This pyramid that they are supposedly seeing beneath the ice sheet, is it really a pyramid, or is it just an interesting mountain, interesting looking mountain? There are pyramids of all kinds of different shapes when you look at the different pyramids all over the planet. So remember that a lot of different ideas are coming out when we do more and more research into certain areas. A lot of times people are finding out new things and they're looking for evidence to support what they already believe. And whenever something doesn't verify what they already believe, they just toss the evidence aside because they are going to believe what they believe no matter what. That, of course, is not always the best way of looking at things. But it would be really cool, I think, if we did discover that there were pyramids and other artificial structures. I don't want to say man-made, because humans have been on this planet supposedly about 100,000 years. And this ice sheet, I'll have to see exactly how long it's actually been there. So anyway, I think that's everything that I'll talk to you about here on this particular topic right now. If I actually come up with any more interesting information, or especially if I find any actual stories that I might be able to tell you about, I will definitely talk about them, because I really love to hear the stories that people have to say about these strange travelings that people have done. And if you've ever heard any of the Norse sagas, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I hope everybody is having a wonderful Monday. And until next time, I shall bid thee adieu.